So, NBC's Phil Simms released his top 5 Bengals of the 21st century. If you don't know who Phil Simms is, he was a New York Giants two-time Super Bowl champion from 79 to 93, where he played quarterback for the New York Giants. He released his top 5 best players of the 21st century for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the players he listed was Chad Johnson, A.J. Green, Willie Anderson, Andrew Whitworth, and Geno Atkins. Now, the person who responded to this was none other than Ocho Cinco, Chad Johnson, who said Coy Dillon should be there instead of me. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and see, stat-wise, because Coy Dillon was the best running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, for the whole entire existence. So let's see who should have been there instead of, if he should have been there instead of Chad. Because Chad, obviously, is one of the best receivers of all time for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's also one of the best receivers of all time, period. But he is definitely for the Bengals, especially. So, 2002, 1,100 yards, 1,300, 1,200, 14, 13, 14. Think about how dominant Chad was over this time period is absolutely ridiculous. Like, this time period right here, these stats are absolutely insane. Especially, obviously nowadays, you look at Cooper Kupp, Jay Jettis, and a couple other receivers. Not as crazy, but during 2002-2007, you weren't seeing quarterbacks throw 5,000 yards. So, and especially because at the time, the Bengals did not have a top-end quarterback either. He was putting up these numbers with quarterbacks that were not top 5. So, that's kind of insanely crazy. Nonetheless, though, and then obviously, he only played 13 games here. He did play 16. He had 1,000 yards and then kind of fizzled off as he got older. Once he hit 30, he kind of hit that, cliff and went a little bit downhill. Nonetheless, though, let's look at Coy Dillon. Coy Dillon played 97 to 2006, and yeah. Listen, with all the things said recently about the Ring of Honor and him with the Ring of Honor, he was the best running back in Cincinnati Bengals history for good reason. Every year with them, except for one, he hit over 1,000 yards rushing. 2 10-touchdown years. He was in all intents and purposes, the best bell cow back you will ever see for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Mixon definitely has played very good for the Bengals, but nothing like my man Coy Dillon here. And again, if it wasn't for the fact of when in 2004 his departure from Cincinnati was an absolute mess and he went to the Patriots and there was a whole animosity and how he left was disrespectful, he would have been, if he would have retired at 29 with the Bengals, it's just insane to think he would have been like the best. He would have been known right now. There would have been no animosity. It would have been like, oh yeah, Coy Dillon, he was the best one of the best Bengals of all time. And everyone would love him, right? But then again, the animosity definitely did not help. And then he went to the Patriots, where he did have 1,600 yards and 12 touchdowns. But then, of course, he kind of fell down a little bit. Nonetheless, though, let's look at some other players on this list here. We have Geno Atkins, who can a little bit of a newer player here. Obviously, those two guys a little bit older. Geno Atkins did play in 2020. And another really overall dominant pass rusher throughout the whole time. I say pass rush, he was a D tackle, but definitely still. How many Pro Bowls were that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Pro Bowls. 8-time Pro Bowler. Man, Geno Atkins was absolutely dominant. You know how dominant he was? That he got a contract when he was 30 years old. He got a 4-year contract for $70 million. And the Bengals do not pay players over 30, especially not that kind of money. So that's how dominant the guy was. That even when he hit 30 years old, the Bengals still gave him good money. Like, that is insane. Absolutely crazy insane how much money he got. Even though, he was 30 years old. He was that dominant. Next guy on this list here, obviously Andrew Whitworth, who did play for the Bengals for a good bit of time. Willie Anderson. You already know I got Willie Anderson's helmet right here. Well, right here signed. And then A.J. Green. Let's take a look at A.J. Green. what's kind of crazy, right? Especially because of how good this current squad is right now for the Bengals. There's some players on the Bengals now who are going to start making that list of top 5 Bengals of the 21st century, which is crazy. Anyway, 1,000, 1,300, 14,000, 1,200, 1,000. And this was like, what? This was when the Andy Dalton era. And I'm not going to trash Andy Dalton, but it was definitely not, again, not the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, you would think these stats here would be like the Joe Burrow era, and it's not. Joe Burrow era wasn't until this right here, which obviously he didn't play all 2020, and in 2021 he went to Arizona, so he didn't get to play really with Joe Burrow at all. But yeah, I mean, he was freaking dominant, definitely. Chad, AJ Green, they're very similar stat wise and like overall wise. AJ Green, here's how I'll say it, right? AJ Green, because he was a juggler. I don't know if you probably guys know this if you're Bengals fans. He was a world class juggler. This guy could literally catch any football, even if it was like tipped up in the air. This guy could perfectly persistently catch that football. Oh, so many memories on the opposite side. For this AJ Green, but still, he was a monster. He definitely was a monster. But again, like I said, I mean, you look at the players nowadays, like Jamar Chase. Right now, obviously, he's only played 2 seasons, but he's going to be on this list definitely in 5 years. He's going to be on this list, 1,000%. T. Higgins is another player who's going to be on this list within 5 years. Like, it's funny to say this because, you know, a lot of teams you're like, oh yeah, these were the greatest players of all time. You look at the Bears, right? Urlacher will always be one of the greatest linebackers of all time. Obviously, Roquan Smith was there too, but he left. But, you know, you have like certain legends where you're like, oh, this guy's the best of all time. The team right now, these guys are eventually going to be on these lists. Like, T, yes, 2,000-yard seasons. He'll probably, I'll say, right now, obviously, he's not on pace. Well, he's on pace right now to AJ Green, Chad Johnson. It's like those guys will always be a little bit better than T, I feel like. Unless he, like, improves stat-wise. But still, it's like neck and neck between the 3. Which is crazy. And Chase, obviously, is going to be better. Is going to be listed better than those guys eventually. And again, you might say, well, it's good of, you know, Joe Burrow. Obviously, yes, Joe Burrow helps a lot. He's a great quarterback. But these are also great receivers and great weapons nonetheless. And I mean, Joe Mixon, other than his one bad year in 2020, I mean, he's still a very good running back. He's one of the best running backs in Bengals history. Which is, again, another guy who eventually will be on that totem pole. Maybe not Joe Mixon, but the other guys I listed definitely on that totem pole eventually, right? And then I'll say I instantly thought about DJ Turner when I thought about a really great quarterback. But Cheeto, Cam Taylor-Britt. Let's see, here we go. Cam Taylor-Britt, he's going to be another guy. I really am confident he's going to be another guy eventually who gets on that totem pole. Like, there's at least 7 or 8 players right now in this current roster who eventually will be on this top 5 list for the 21st century of Cincinnati Bengals players. It's going to be hard for them to weed out or go be better than Willie Anderson or Andrew Whitworth, but I think eventually it will happen. Especially 5-6 years down the line, these guys are going to overtake these positions, which is absolutely crazy. But this is how good this team is right now. This team is so dominant right now that you have at least 6 or 7 players who could easily be top 5. Guys, tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.